Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Friday, and hopefully, we're having a wonderful start to the month out there. And we do have a lot going on in the weather department, from increasing chances of tropical development to a potential severe weather outbreak on the way. And we could even have some snow through portions outside of higher elevations into the lower 48 over the next week or so. So things are definitely picking up. A great way to stay up to date, though, is by hitting that subscribe button. It's free. Go ahead and hit that bell for the latest notifications as well. Like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from. And doing all of that will help keep these videos in your feed, and you'll be up to date with daily posts here as we get into this active pattern ahead. Now, I will add a couple things here. I do just want to say thank you. We've had some incredible growth over the past couple of months. And I'm looking very forward to wintertime. Wintertime's kind of the prime time on my channel, and I do think it's going to be another great season of growth. So again, just want to say thank you to everyone, and I'm very excited about the months ahead as we go ahead and start November. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and start talking about the weather, because again, a lot to discuss today, as a lot of things have kind of not changed necessarily, kind of really stayed on track and gone in the direction I kind of expected it to, but still picking up in activity. So we will start with satellite imagery, and I've kind of got this zoomed in over the lower 48 as well as the western Atlantic, so we can take a look at the tropics and kind of what's happening over the country at the same time. Now, one thing you will notice is this big line of cooler cloud tops over the east. This is what's left of our cold front that moved through the plains and the upper Midwest, that brought severe weather and even some snow to some folks just a day or so ago. Now, again, this front is losing its umph and losing some of that lift kind of from the Mason-Dixon line south into the southeast, where we're not going to get as much lift from this system, but definitely some showers ongoing, and those showers also working through the northeast. And let me tell you, we could use the rain, folks. We've had just a very dry month of October. I think it was Birmingham went the entire month of October without rain up until the final 3 hours. So really just some incredible dry stretches through a lot of these areas that luckily is beginning to get kind of tampered down just a little bit. But we're going to need more rain than this, because for a lot of folks, not a lot is going to fall out of this pattern. Now, out west for our folks out there, you'll notice kind of the beginnings of what is our next major storm system crossing into the country. And that is really going to be the start of a big-time severe weather outbreak over the southern plains here through a multiple-day time frame, starting really, you could say, today through the weekend and even into early next week. So you got to be on your A game out there. You got to have a way to get those watches and warnings as we are entering second severe weather season. Now, down into the Caribbean, you will notice not a lot happening right now in the shower and storm activity department, but two areas I'm going to circle here that do have the chance for tropical development, and I'm really watching that area down deep south into the Caribbean for the potential of some cyclogenesis over the next 5 days or so, and that could get pulled northward towards the Gulf of Mexico and maybe bring United States impacts in that 7 to 10 day time frame. And that's where we're going to start today's video, is in the tropics. So things really picked up pretty quickly since yesterday's video out here. I'll go ahead and kind of start talking about these smaller areas first. This one up into the northern Atlantic. I guess I'll get my face out of the way so you can kind of read the percent chances, and well, I guess you can't even read it anyway, but it's a 10% chance of development over the next 7 days with that system. The good news, no impacts to land out of this, and even if it were to form, it would be more of a subtropical system than a fully tropical system, and could maybe, hit the Azores out here with some rain and some gusty winds, but nothing that those folks are not used to. Now, the next area to talk about is this other little yellow blob. This one also only running a 10% chance of development over the next 7 days, as it's currently north of Puerto Rico and likely to cross north of Hispaniola. But I think what's really going to be more likely to happen is our area in red now that we've been watching for a while, and now that has that 70% chance of development over the next 7 days, is probably really going to combine with that other system and kind of pull some of that vorticity down south into the Caribbean and form a more robust storm that I think is pretty likely to become a tropical storm, potentially a hurricane, before all is said and done. And I'll tell you, folks, it's not common we get landfalling hurricanes in the month of November. So if this one does happen to do that, which again, there is a chance, that would be quite the uncommon thing to see. So that is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the ingredients out here. Let me walk you through why there is this potential for development. And you're thinking probably, well, it's November. What in the world are we doing? we should be done by now. And I've been mentioning for a good week or two now that there was the chance that something in the early parts of November or end of October would get going down here. And unfortunately, that's basically exactly what is looking to happen. Now, the first ingredient for tropical development is warm sea surface temperatures, and the Western Atlantic down here into the Caribbean is one of the warmest places left on Earth in terms of ocean temperatures, with temperatures still up and around 30 degrees Celsius. That's in the upper 80s for Fahrenheit, which is more than enough for explosive tropical development. So again, you got sea surface temperatures between, we'll say, 85 and 88, 89 degrees Fahrenheit into this part of the Caribbean, and you only need the temperatures around 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 76, to support tropical development. So this is well over that threshold, meaning that this is enough not only to produce a storm, but if conditions were favorable, potentially produce a pretty strong storm, again, possibly getting into that hurricane strength. Now, obviously, warm sea surface temperatures are not the only thing we need for development. If that was the case, then we would have hurricanes all over the place all the time. But another ingredient is wind shear. We need low levels of wind shear. And right now, that is something that we are struggling with in the Caribbean. The red on your map indicating above average wind shear, the blue indicating below average wind shear. But you will notice a small pocket of more favorable winds tucked down here again in and around the Panama area. But as we go through this weekend and into early next week, I am expecting more blue to begin to show up on the map here. This is getting into Monday afternoon. Notice this big pocket of more calm winds showing up over the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean, which is indicating, again, that we could see favorable conditions for a storm to get its act going. Now, another thing that is ongoing is we do have a favorable MJO phase. Now, without getting into all the science, just to tell you what that means, we have rising air over the Caribbean right now. So that is also kind of boosting that chance for development. And, you add all that together and it starts to become pretty possible to get a storm in the month of November. Now, that is not all, though. I am going to show you one more kind of ingredient for severe weather, or excuse me, for hurricanes, rather. We'll get to severe weather later, though. And that is the kind of moisture in the atmosphere. Hurricanes need a lot of moisture to get going. They do not like dry air. So obviously what we want to see on the map is dry air. Now, high moisture content values are showing up in the blue and the green on your map. More dry air is showing up in those drier kind of beigeish, brownish colors. So brown is good for us. Green is not so good for us. And I'll move this ahead into time. And you'll notice down into the Caribbean right now, pretty high moisture content. So again, pretty favorable for development currently, but I will mention as we go further ahead into time, and you'll notice this is the GFS model that spins up this low pressure. There is going to be dry air in the vicinity of the storm in that 5-day time frame, as this big Bermuda high is pulling up some Sahara dust and getting this kind of into the Gulf of Mexico. So it's not completely smooth sailing for the storm system. I do think dry air will be a limiting factor. And you'll notice even as this gets into the Gulf, into the kind of coming weekend, or I guess really later this coming week, there is some dry air in and around it. And you'll even notice, look at this, another storm right behind that one, which, we will talk about a little bit. But this actually, the one behind it, isn't even the first storm that I showed you that had that 10% chance of development. Those are kind of two separate systems, same area, but separate pieces of energy. So again, just to show you, we do have relatively favorable conditions for development. So let's kind of take a look at the steering pattern really quickly. Where would this, whatever it is, go, and why would it go there? Well, again, it has been very dry in the east recently. And the big reason for that has been this big time ridge that has set up shop over the eastern United States. So what this kind of does is, again, I'll draw where low pressure will likely form. This acts as a bit of a blocking mechanism. So again, the flow around this at the surface is kind of like this due to our high pressure. But in the upper levels, again, this is, imagine just a big old dam in a river. It just kind of stops the flow, which prevents the storm from, going straight into the southeastern United States. So what would be more likely is this anticyclonic flow would pick up the storm and again, pull it towards the Gulf. Now, at that point, what happens is a bit of a, more loaded question. We don't entirely know, but you'll notice as we go further ahead into time, this ridge slowly starts to scoot the other direction. And that does leave a small window, I think, sometime next week for this storm to maybe try to pull northward and impact the Gulf Coast states from Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle, or potentially that ridge stays stronger and this gets shoved more towards Texas or Mexico. I think those are probably the two most likely scenarios right now into those steering currents, and you can see that on our ensembles as well. We will start with the GFS ensembles and take a look at where they kind of predict this going. Now, this is the start of this coming week. This is Sunday evening into Monday. Notice a big cluster of a signal here and then another signal again with that other piece. But what happens again is this Caribbean signal kind of takes over and absorbs any vorticity from that northern area that they're watching for development. And by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, a lot of ensemble members showing a tropical storm and or hurricane just south of the island of Cuba and moving towards the Gulf of Mexico. We'll move this even further ahead into time, and by the time we get to next Wednesday afternoon, many of these ensemble members moving this into the Gulf of Mexico as, again, a tropical storm and or weaker lower end hurricane. And then from that point on, that's where, again, things get a little crazy. Some ensemble members pull this up north towards Florida. Some move this back out towards Texas and Mexico. There are a lot of possibilities on where it could go after that point. But what I'll mention that is kind of the piece of good news here is the Gulf of Mexico is not nearly as warm as it was a month or two ago. That combined with some of the dry air that could be working in, I don't expect any kind of explosive development with this system. In fact, I think it may be at its strongest, actually, kind of right into this region of the Western Caribbean, and then probably leveling off, if not weakening a little bit into the Gulf of Mexico. But that's not to say it could not stay strong in the Gulf of Mexico, or maybe even strengthen a little bit, just not really those explosive ingredients that we had maybe with Helene or Milton earlier on this hurricane season, which is obviously definitely some good news. And then I'll briefly mention here, check out the backside here. This is about a week from now, another pretty big signal for that second storm showing up. So we'll have to watch that, as there's a little bit of a stationary boundary here that may try to get something going. But we'll save that for another time, as that is more than a week away. And let's focus on this first area. All right. What about the European ensembles? What are they showing? Well, again, a pretty similar story. Storm develops into the Caribbean, gets into the Western Caribbean by Wednesday. So at this point, the models are in pretty good agreement that sometime this weekend into early next week, we get development down into the Southern Caribbean. And by the middle of next week, we have a storm system into the Western Caribbean at or around tropical storm to hurricane strength. And then getting into the Gulf of Mexico. And at this point, most European ensemble members, I would say, pull this direction towards Texas, but a couple, again, try to curve it north into the southeastern United States. So a lot of options still on the table here, but I will say the models have come into much better agreement overnight and yesterday afternoon. So since our last video, the models are a lot more on the same page. All right, I will very quickly show you some operational runs. Here's the GFS. Again, I think with the development, it's got the timing about right in the GFS. Again, it's probably Sunday into Monday. I think it's going a little too far north towards Cuba before hooking it westbound here, but nonetheless, it does. And then actually makes landfall in southern Cuba as a tropical storm, rides up the southern coast of Cuba, gets into the Gulf of Mexico by the middle of next week, and then kind of meanders through the Gulf and eventually gets picked up by a cold front. And kind of fizzles out along the Gulf Coast. So wouldn't see major United States impacts with that, but we would have a tropical storm to a hurricane in and around Cuba and then into the southern Gulf of Mexico. European model, well, a little bit weaker and a little bit later on development, but does develop this into the Western Caribbean. So again, starts into the Southern Caribbean, moves up into the Western Caribbean, develops into a low pressure system by next Wednesday, as most of the models have it in this position at that time. And then pulls this north into the Gulf of Mexico, but moves generally towards Texas and kind of weakens upon arrival. Final model I will show you, the Canadian model, has been a little bit more hyperactive with intensity, gets a pretty strong tropical storm into the Western Caribbean, crosses it into the Gulf again next Wednesday into Thursday, and actually maintains this as a tropical storm and pulls it north into the Panhandle of Florida. And would bring some tropical storm impacts into that region. And it just seems like the panhandle of Florida has been tropical storm or hurricane capital of the world for a couple years in a row now. But, those are all the possibilities. And again, we'll continue to monitor it. But I do think there is definitely much higher confidence in a storm developing into the Caribbean and getting into the Gulf of Mexico about 5 or so days from now. All right, lower 48, what's happening? Well, we talked about satellite imagery. What about radar? Again, we are seeing some rain along this front for sure, especially up into Maine and into portions of Ontario and Quebec, down to Ottawa, Quebec City itself, and kind of surrounding areas, even down into Montreal. But again, heavy rain down into New Brunswick, up into the coast of Maine, moving into Nova Scotia this afternoon. Scattered rain again into southeastern Kansas here, and all of that moving towards the maritime provinces. And also seeing some scattered showers along the I-95 corridor, Boston down to Philly, Washington into Virginia, seeing some showers this morning and afternoon. And some of these even crossing into the Carolinas. So definitely getting some showers into the mountains, Knoxville, Asheville, Greensboro, Charlotte, GSP down to Atlanta, even some showers into the Birmingham area and down into portions of Louisiana. And again, we could use the rain, so we'll take it. And this is kind of the perfect way to do it in just this showery way. And not with big bursts of heavy training rain, which is something that we wouldn't really want so much. Also, heavy rain down into the Gulf Coast of Texas, I will mention. So this is an area that was dry for a very long time, but has really gotten back into this rainy pattern over the past week or so. So any viewers down there, definitely let me know how much rain you've picked up, but I'm sure you're definitely enjoying that. Also, some shower activity into the Dallas-Fort Worth area on this Friday. Now, pulling it north here a little bit, we actually have a little bit of a disturbance. There was a short wave that moved over that allowed for some very weak low pressure to develop at the surface over the Dakotas. And this has led to some even snow activity, some rain and snow activity over the Dakotas for our Friday. And this will continue to pull off north and east towards Minnesota throughout the afternoon. Now, getting out west, this is where our next storm system is beginning, and look at all of that precipitation, very heavy mountain snow and valley and coastal rain out of this one. And again, this is just the start of what is going to turn into a potential severe weather outbreak over portions of the country in the coming days. So that's what we're seeing out there right now. Again, I'll briefly mention still a wildfire risk in the Northeast. I kind of glossed over that, but these are red flag warnings in the purple. So do not burn anything. I know you're getting a little bit of rain right now, but do not assume that that will, solve any potential fire concerns. You definitely don't want to assume that. And then obviously a ton of winter weather advisories out into the Rockies, specifically the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas for our current storm system. But I do expect that to expand deeper into the Rockies over the coming days. All right, let's talk about the setup here, and I already know this video is going to be longer than I planned it to be, but that's okay. So currently right now for our Friday afternoon, the meridional flow that we were kind of locked into that was bringing all these storm systems has quelled a little bit, and we've become much more zonal across the country. So this has led to less severe weather currently, but that is going to change because watch what happens out west this weekend. A big-time trough dumps out into the plains, or into the Rockies, I should say, and this will start our next severe weather extravaganza, if you will. Well, really starting today, but today into tomorrow, but especially into Sunday and Monday are the two big days I'm watching for severe weather potential, and we'll go ahead and break that down in just a moment. But before we do that, let's very quickly talk about the eastern United States. I'm going to check. We do have a new model run that is not going to go all the way out in time, but we're going to use this one because it'll get us through the rest of today, and it is brand new. So here we go. This afternoon, you'll notice again a couple of showers continuing to work through the Northeast, even a bit of a low pressure system working through Canada and the maritime provinces, and even into Maine. So some enhanced precipitation up into that region this afternoon. Other than that, just showers along the I-95 corridor back down into the southeast as this front, which I will kind of draw the placement of this front generally like this, into this afternoon will continue to cross the eastern seaboard of the country, and luckily we'll bring some cooler, nicer temperatures, definitely. And we should begin to dry out through the afternoon, through the evening, and into overnight tonight. By the time we're waking up into our Saturday, Again, just a couple of showers I think could be possible into Virginia and North Carolina. Going to kind of be a 1-2 punch. You get one front today, and then you get another backdoor front tomorrow due to this high pressure, bringing in some cold air damming here. And you'll notice that with some of this kind of rain that is showing up as that works on through for your Saturday morning. And then by Saturday afternoon, most of us east of the Mississippi are calm. You look out west, things go downhill pretty quickly, and I'll talk about that next. But east of the Mississippi, at least, looks to be a pretty calm weekend outside of a couple of showers, maybe at times in certain areas. Temperature-wise, again, I will show this to you. This afternoon, warm for a lot of us east of the Appalachia chain as that front is yet to move on through. But we get into tonight, and you'll notice that front does swing on through, waking up tomorrow. Cooler for a lot of folks into the Ohio River Valley and into Michigan, getting back down in and around freezing. Same for the Northeast into those higher terrains. Staying muggy into the southeast, but that will change as this backdoor front moves through Saturday afternoon and then into Sunday. This is overnight. This is about 1 a.m. Saturday into Sunday. You'll notice that cooler air funneling down the backside of the Appalachia chain, indicating some of that cold air damming on the way for this weekend and some of those nicer temperatures as well. All right, what about the potential for severe weather? Well, this afternoon we do have a slight marginal risk into portions of southeastern New Mexico here and into the western panhandle of Texas, but it's really tomorrow that the more significant severe weather threat begins. Again, from Midland back towards Big Spring, Texas, Abilene, Lubbock, Plainview, even back up into Wichita Falls, Lawton, and Oklahoma City. The chance for a strong storm or two for your Saturday, but it's Sunday that things really begin to pick up, and you'll notice this big blob of potential severe weather. So let's go ahead and try to time this out for you just a little bit, and then we will kind of have to move from the mesoscale models to the global models for that day 3 and 4 threat. But let's start in the near term. All right, so this afternoon out west, again, a whole bunch of mountain snow and valley rain, and this could be convective at times, so some thunder snow, some thunderstorms in general are not out of the question as all this lift begins to work on through. So you folks in Washington, Oregon, NoCal, a lot of precipitation as, again, this La Nina pattern is really beginning to set up shop and kind of just continue that trend. Now, we get into tomorrow afternoon, that Rocky Mountain snow moves into Idaho, into Nevada, Utah, into Yellowstone National Park. And at that point, we begin to see this Colorado low begin to develop into the plains. Now, let's back this up a little bit because I want to talk about this severe weather threat into starting this afternoon. Again, I said we did have a marginal risk. You'll notice it's hard to see, but a couple little storms trying to pop up in that marginal risk today. Again, it's marginal for a reason. It's very, a marginal setup. But we do get into tomorrow for our Saturday. And this is really overnight tonight. You'll notice more of those storms popping up. And that could, again, bring a flooding threat as well as a severe weather threat overnight tonight as that low-level jet ramps up. So, again, marginal during the afternoon today, picking up in intensity, I think, overnight for severe weather potential. And then hanging around tomorrow, and by Saturday afternoon, we've got a big line of thunderstorms moving into our risk area for tomorrow. Oklahoma City, Wichita Falls, back down towards Abilene, and Big Springs, Texas, getting in on those strong to severe storms. And to the north of there, not severe, but some rain falling into Kansas, Nebraska, and into southwestern Iowa, and into southeastern South Dakota for your Saturday afternoon, and that continues to bring a severe weather threat into the afternoon and evening hours of Saturday. Now, that would get us into the weekend, and again, this is when I do expect the severe weather threat to really ramp up a bit. Sunday, as I showed you, that big threat, but even Monday, and potentially another threat later next week as another storm system works on through. So let's time this out for you. Here we go. Sunday afternoon, look at this big time trough. I mean, this thing is amplified. So what does this mean? Well, this means we're getting big-time cyclonic vorticity down here into the bottom of this trough. And all of this is advecting out towards the plains, which is going to lead to some cyclogenesis. This is going to help form that Colorado low along this baroclinic zone through the Rocky Mountains. And this is going to create a tremendous amount of lift. And you'll notice this diffluence aloft that we're seeing, just meaning these isobars are separating apart from each other. That creates lift at the surface. That is going to create a lot of rising motion and big-time storm activity starting Sunday. But this continues even into Monday. In fact, look at what happens here on Monday. This jet stream really goes a little crazy on Monday afternoon. We've got wind speeds here in the mid levels at about 80 to 90 knots with a bit of a jet streak. Yeah, I think portions of Oklahoma Monday as well. Depending on where that front is and how this jet streak sets up shop, we could see areas of tremendous lift that, again, could lead to big-time storm threats, including all hazards, strong straight line winds, hail, and definitely even a tornado threat as well for your Monday. And then we get into Tuesday afternoon, and don't be surprised to see a severe weather threat continue east. Again, this is quite the jet streak showing up, so this could create some big-time damaging wind threat. Again, any of that getting mixed down to the surface would create, again, those very strong straight line winds. But we get later into next week, folks, and look, we do it all again. Another big storm system dives into the Rockies, this one becoming a little bit more cut off, and we get, again, a lot of vorticity. I mean, this is fully closed low. This creates incredible amounts of cyclonic vorticity advection, which, again, is going to lead to that potential for a lot of lift and a lot of severe weather, both dynamically and potentially thermodynamically, depending on the kind of SKU-T values out here. But again, that's a lot of meteorology are going to tell you we're going to have a severe weather threat and a potential severe weather outbreak to start the first half of the month of November. And again, getting back to that severe weather outlook, this is day 3, so this is your Sunday. Like I said, the jet stream going a little crazy at this point. So Wichita, Dodge City, really all of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the northern half of north central Texas, even up into southern Nebraska, needs to be ready for the potential of strong to severe storms for Sunday. But not only Sunday, check this out. We're going to go into Monday. Look at this. Dallas, Fort Worth, Tulsa, Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, back even into Little Rock, St. Louis. A severe weather threat for sure for our Monday afternoon. So need to be ready for that. You got to have a way to get watches, warnings, and advisories here through the weekend as the severe weather threat continues. And again, I think even about a week out, we're going to do it all again with another severe weather outlook. All right, so just timing this all out for you very quickly. And again, not going to go too in depth because this is going to change and it's not perfect scale. But Sunday afternoon, again, you'll notice our low pressure placement into Colorado. So still big time mountain snow and big time severe weather in front of that low pressure. But you'll notice we get troughing outside of this a good bit, and we've got multiple areas of lift even to the north. So I think a very rainy Sunday for a lot of folks in the country here as this just big storm system and trough swing on through. We get this into Monday afternoon. And again, I think this is going to be another big severe weather day. Probably, I would argue, even higher than Sunday, but Sunday could be its own problem as well. Again, a lot of lift out here, a lot of thunderstorm activity. You'll notice even a lot of rain getting up into Canada. And you're probably wondering, well, Gerald, it's, November 4th at this point, the day before Election Day, I should add. Why are we getting rain all the way up into Canada? Well, it's all due to this big time ridge. Again, we've got very warm temperatures in the east. That combined with this low level jet just adding even more moisture and more warm Gulf temperatures. We're not going to get any snow, at least on this side of the country. But watch what happens with this Monday storm system. Swings on through. This one brings some cold air behind it. It crosses up through the country. And then in the long run with that next storm system I was mentioning during the middle of next week, this one's got a little bit more cold air to work with. And we got snow breaking out even outside of the Rockies into the Dakotas, Nebraska. Check this out, a heavy deformation band of snow about a week or so from now into the northern plains. And yeah, sure enough, more big time severe weather into the week out time frame. So we're going to be rocking and rolling, folks. And those severe weather ingredients are going to be here to stay. Look at this. This is this weekend. Round after round after round of severe weather, a little bit of a lull in the middle of the week, and then those ingredients ramp back up during the kind of end of next week. You'll notice picking up there during that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday time frame as that next storm system begins to work on through. All right, rainfall. This is now through Wednesday. You'll notice all the rain really centered over the middle of the country and up into the Pacific Northwest as all of those storm systems kind of train on through here. But we go even further out into time, and you're noticing a little bit of an uptick in rain in the southeast. This could be due to that Gulf moisture with that Gulf system is probably what the models are indicating there. So we'll have to watch that. But I do think, through the next 5 days or so, all of the significant rain, that is, stays out into the plains. But as we go further ahead into time, you will notice more rain chances into the southeast, and again, we could use it. Snowfall chances, well, again, a lot of snow coming to the Rockies, from the Cascades down to the Sierra Nevadas into the mountains of Colorado, Yellowstone. I mean, again, through the next 10 days is what this is showing. I'm going to be counting snow in feet in some places with 20, 30, 40, 50 inches of snow. This is really going to jumpstart ski season, and it's looking to shape up to be a pretty good ski season out west with this La Nina pattern. So definitely good for you folks out there into the Rockies. All right, very briefly going to show this just to give you an idea, 6 to 10 days out, what's on the horizon? Well, I do expect it to remain warm in the east, relatively cool out west, but more importantly, the change I'm seeing in the long run is in the precipitation patterns. Check this out. Again, the chance of more above average precipitation towards kind of the 6th to the 10th of November here into the southeast. Again, whatever low pressures in the Gulf, hopefully pulling some moisture northward and kind of relieving some of these drought concerns that are beginning to worry folks down that way. And then remaining stormy into the desert southwest and potentially drying out a little bit through the northern tier of the country. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see. Alrighty, folks. Well, again, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found some use in it. If you did and you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. With that said, have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.